week's episode of Gundam Build Fighters Try. Team Tri-Fighters finally get to throw down with Team G-Master in the finals. This week's episode will certainly satisfy your hunger for maniacal mecha madness. It had a lot of flash, feels, and fisticuffs. Not to mention a hilariously awkward scene where Akira bitch slaps the hell out of Yomi. You gotta remember, guys, this is a reference to the original Mobile Suit Gundam, an anime series from the 1970s. Things were a little different back then. Despite Akira's Slugger-style bitch slapping, this scene is actually very important, as it brings both Akira and Yomi closer together, and this is going to play an important role in the final battle of this week's episode, which they don't waste any time in getting to. There's a little bit of build-up at the beginning, there's a little recap of Gyanko's defeat, and for better or worse, it's downplayed quite a bit. If you guys remember in last week's episode, it almost seemed like she was literally killed in a mobile suit battle, and that's not to say they don't do that in this week's episode and throughout the entire series. Even though they're just playing Gunpla battle, it literally looks like they're fighting to the death in space, just the way they react and talk to each other. But that's what actually makes this series a lot of fun. You can tell that the creators are just really trying to make something really entertaining for fans of all the different Gundam anime series. The setting of the final battle is the massive space fortress Solomon. Fans of the original Mobile Suit Gundam will certainly appreciate this reference, and it certainly makes a really flashy battlefield. First, you have the Lightning Gundam going up against the Mega Shiki and its massive particle cannon outside, which literally blows away half of the Lightning Gundam, and yet Yuma still keeps on kicking and destroys that massive gun and almost seemingly destroys the Mega Shiki as well. Meanwhile, the winning Gundam and the build-burning Gundam fly into the massive space fortress, where they're immediately confronted by both Yomi and Akira, and we finally get to see what Sekai has actually learned in his training. If you've ever noticed, the build-burning Gundam has these weird translucent glowy pieces all over its body, and these can actually act as a shield, and we get to see how they work in this week's episode. So it almost seems like Akira is going to defeat him just like in the previous battle, but Sekai is able to trick him, and then suddenly Akira fires all of these cluster missiles at him, and that's when he finally starts moving at high speeds, using the shields all over his body to deflect every missile. It's a cool scene because it's something new for the build-burning Gundam, and frankly, it just looks badass. And it seems like both the Core Fighter and the V-Gundam are defeated. That is until we actually get to learn that Team G-Master can combine their mobile suits as well, and that's when we get the combination with the Core Fighter and the V-Gundam, and this Frankenstein-esque mobile suit is awesome. It's got these big mechanical hands, and it's also got this big, sharp lance weapon. It's really unique looking, and it makes for a really great final battle, but Team Tri-Fighters is not going to be outdone. So Yuma somehow survived the massive explosion, and he flies in on his Core Fighter, which the build-burning Gundam actually uses like a frickin' surfboard in space, and then it combines with the cockpit of the winning Gundam on its arm, which it uses to do this one final punch to take out the opponents all at once. And this scene is awesome because we get to see one of the secret abilities of the build-burning Gundam, which was only hinted at in the first episode of the series, where those blue pieces actually turn red and almost look like lava, and he just flies through them, destroys them, and you think that's actually the end of the battle. It actually looks really cool when the build-burning Gundam is floating through space, and it hits this wall, and then suddenly you see that Shunsuke and the Mega Shiki has survived. Half of it is destroyed, and it's slowly walking towards him, and in a rage, a Gunpla rage, he just flies at him and hits him with one of the coolest punches I've ever seen, only to have his Gunpla's arm shatter at the last second, giving Team Tri-Fighters the edge so that they can win the battle. And apparently it really messed Sekai up because he looked like he just got into a fight. He even has a cut on his face, and he literally just gets knocked out at the end of the battle. And what's really great about this too is that Tatsuya Yuki, the frickin' Meijin Kawaguchi, is watching the entire time, and I love how over the top he is. It all ends with Team Tri-Fighters finally winning and getting ready to go to the Nationals. So what's the rundown? On this week's episode of Gundam Build Fighters Try, it was great. This was one of the greatest Gunpla battles I've ever seen. It was handled really well, and it had some fantastic animation and some really great artwork. In particular, the scenes at the very end where the Mega Shiki was punching the Build Burning Gundam, and you got to see them floating through space. It just looked so incredibly awesome. Also, just the weapons of the Mega Shiki, that massive particle cannon, which it literally pulls out and rides like a motorcycle. It's not the first time that we've seen something like that in Gundam, but it's always really cool to see that type of stuff. And Yuma was just so awesome this week when he seemingly committed suicide kamikaze to take out Shunsuke. It was a really impressive scene, and it shows how far he's come, and it really shows that he was going to do whatever it took to actually have their team win. But of course he had his other surprise with his core fighters suddenly disappearing. I really liked that. One of the biggest surprises though was Yomi and Akira. I just love the development between these two characters, and I love that little twist where both their mobile suits could combine. I actually did not see that coming at all. I kind of figured that Akira's mobile suit, his fighter, was probably going to transform in some form or fashion. I just didn't imagine that it was going to combine with anything, and that made for a really great twist. As for seeing that weird secret ability from Sekai where suddenly everything became red and everything, I'm not really sure where that's going, but it looked really awesome, especially the massive ring of fire which appears behind his back, which pushes him forward to amplify the power of his attack. It's just a really great scene that Gundam fans are really going to love, and it certainly brings to mind memories of G Gundam. It just sort of feels like that, and if the intro is still any indication, Domon Kashu is going to appear in some form or fashion in this show, and I am just constantly waiting for that. This week's episode was great. It had a lot of great character moments at the beginning. Gyanko was awesome. The mobile suit battles were incredible and really flashy. Everybody got to do something really cool, and Sekai was incredibly awesome this week. This was definitely the best episode of the series thus far, and it almost feels like it could be the final episode of the series, and yet we're just getting started. This is still just the beginning of the show, and I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with the second half of the series. It looks like next week we're going to take a little bit of a break and have kind of a downtime episode, but it looks like it's still going to be a fun one. I remember they did a couple of those in the previous season, and even those are really great and a lot of fun to watch. I will say I really loved this episode a lot right here. Like I said, they did downplay some of the stuff in the beginning with Gyanko's defeat, but still I liked it. They made up for it for all of the ridiculousness in the final battle, which looked really awesome, had a lot of great gunpla fighting choreography, and just a lot of really awesome attacks and combinations. It's certainly just a really fun anime series. This is an anime series for the anime fan, and you should check it out if you're a fan of either the mecha genre or the Gundam anime series. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5, man. 5 out of 5, no complaints from me. It was awesome. Check it out, guys. Really great stuff. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Gundam Build Fighters Try. Did you have a favorite scene from the finals? What do you want to see from the rest of Gundam Build Fighters Try? Remember guys, if you want to subscribe to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. You guys can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.